Well, if anybody knows anything about calling, it's you. I mean, you've been in the top five in the world, top five in the world for what, 18 years or something like that? 18 times?
You go enough, and yeah, I mean that's what I say. If you go enough times, your number is going to get called from time to time.
For
So
time to
I've been,
time. You won it. You've won it 11 times.
yeah,
You're like the Tom Brady of elk calling. That's insane,
uh,
man. It's just, I just think there's such an art to it. And when you're talking about instinct, it's an instinct, right? So like, a lot of old timers have told me, don't try to think like the elk, or don't try to think like a deer, try to take away their options. But when it comes to elk, I think you do have to think like an elk, because
absolutely.
when you think about what would piss you off, right? If you're like hanging out at home with your wife and somebody comes and knocks on your door and you're like, all right, go, like, no thanks, go away. And they keep banging on that door. You're going to get up and come down there and check it out.
Yeah,
Right. But also it's like these bulls sometimes will just take their cows and leave instead of coming to check it out. So it's like, okay, well then now we move on to the next bull then, right?
yeah,
If that happens, like there's nothing you can do there. That bull's
totally.
just not, maybe tomorrow he'll be pissed off enough,
And that's what I say. You've got to find the bull that's ready to die today.
Yep.
And by ready to die, that is fired up, and he's not taking anybody coming close to him. And there's some bulls that are just like, you know what? I've played the game. I'm going to keep moving away. Anytime somebody cow calls or bugles, I'm just moving away. And those ones are tough. But I think what you said there, the proximity is so important. If you're sitting on the couch with your wife and somebody texts you and says, "Hey, you're a jerk." It's like, "Hey, check out this text. That's funny, isn't it? This guy's a nobody and he says, thinks I'm a jerk." But you walk around the corner and somebody's in your face, they come around the corner and they just start screaming at you and insulting you and your wife right there. You aren't turning to your wife and be like, "Yeah, that guy's kind of a jerk." You're coming to blows. I mean, you're
Yeah.
throwing punches. You're protecting because he's too close, he's in your space. Your reaction, that reaction that you can't control, elk have the same thing. There are times when a bull will bugle and take his cows and go, and will push him, push him, push him. We're 200 yards from him for 2 miles up the mountain. And all of a sudden we come over a rise and he's 80 yards away. And we do the same thing we've been doing for the last 2 hours. But now we're too close and he feels threatened. He's getting close to his bedding area where he doesn't want competition. He wants to relax and know that he's safe there. He's going to come in and run you off at that point. So
Yeah.
getting close and then saying the right thing, and you said it exactly, thinking like an elk. What do I need to do to make that elk want to fight me? And I mean, I think there's a lot of similar tendencies to a, you know, 23-year-old male human to a rutting bull
Oh
elk.
yeah, definitely full of testosterone,
Yeah.
and they only get to do it once a year. So it's like they get to expel all that energy for a whole month, a little over a month of doing that. End of August in Colorado, you start hearing them start bugling a little bit and start trying to round up their cows. And then, even into October, like the second week of October, they're still getting after it. So you got like a month and a half of good rut action in Colorado, which is awesome to see, but you know, when you get these bulls that are like bedded in the middle of the day, right? And you're like, I kind of know where he's bedded. Like I know what area he's bedded in. Do you ever just sneak in there and just rip one when you're like 100 yards away?
Well, it's my favorite time and area to hunt. Like 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock in a bedding area on a north face, the efficiency of that situation is higher than anything I can think of. The bull, you know, multiple, I would say 40 to 50% of the bulls that I shoot are between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons. First, they're not on the move. When they're on the move going up the mountain, a bull doesn't want to turn and come in because his cows aren't coming in. They're moving to the bedding area.
Yeah.
They have a mission to get there at the right time to be protected. So a bull turning and coming into your calls is leaving his cows. He's susceptible to losing them. He could lose the fight with you, and then you steal the cows. So he's just following the cows. When they get to that bedding area, the cows are bedded down. They aren't moving. He doesn't have to worry about losing them, and he's in an area that he's very territorial and protective of. And so if somebody gets too close there and gets aggressive, he's like, "Listen, if we have to move out of this bedding area, we're going to have to travel 2 miles in the middle of the day when the thermals aren't perfect. It's going to be much better for me, and I'll be much safer if I get up and protect this area."
Yeah.
And so I'll walk all day throwing location bugles down into bedding areas. And if I can get a bull to make a peep during the middle of the day, he's a dead bull. Like if he answers me between 10 and 2 o'clock, I pinpoint his location. I can get within 100 yards of him, and there's no way he's going to get up and leave. He's going to come into that calling setup.
You know, and it's funny because there was a lot of time I was doing that same thing this year. That was like my strategy because I was like, dude, we chase these bulls all day long, and then they just like get to their bedding area, and then we blow them out. Like,
Yep.
I was like, that's not working. You know, I was like, we got to just like chill, watch it, like keep ripping bugles as we walk ridges, not skyline ourselves and not be too loud. But that's the other thing I want to ask you. What are how many bulls do you think you walk by before one actually finally answers? You know, like you walk by probably 10 bull. You know, if you're hunting a big enough area, like you'll walk by 10 different bulls. They just don't answer you. And then there's going to be one,
especially.
There'll be one that does though. If you keep going, you just have to keep going. And there'll be one that does.
That's what I was saying. That one that answers, he's in a world of hurt. He doesn't know it yet, but when he answers middle of the day, it's like, oh, buddy, you just sealed your fate. You're talkative.
It's weird because I always say this, like the elk are educated because I feel like they are educated, like they know better, you know. And it's because you see them right before muzzleloader season, which muzzleloader season is like right in the middle of September in Colorado, which sucks for archery hunters. You know, awesome if you've got a muzzleloader in your hand because like you know a lot of bulls are hitting the ground, but terrible if you're an archery hunter because these guys with the muzzleloaders, they're just like ripping banging away, ripping bugles all day, just like skylining themselves. They don't care because all they need is a bull to pop out at like 100 yards and they could smoke them, you know. And it's actually like I could say I was probably within 100 yards of 40 bulls this month.
Yeah,
but you know, you need them closer than that. You shouldn't be slinging arrows. I don't know. I'm not slinging arrows at 100 yards. I'm not doing it.
That's the beauty of bow hunting is getting close.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thrill of calling elk is you see them at 100 yards and that's cool. And sometimes you get desperate and think, oh, I should fling an arrow so I can kill one. But that's not bow hunting. Bow hunting is that, you know, I always say bow hunting starts where rifle hunting ends. Basically, you can shoot a bull at 200 or 300 yards with a rifle. You don't even really start hunting the elk until you get within 200 or 300 yards with a bow.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that saying. That's pretty cool because it's true. You're like, oh man, I was so close, but were you really though? Because unless you were within 80 yards of that bull, like you had zero opportunity really. I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard everybody I've ever heard of shooting at an elk at 100 yards. It's like, oh, I went right over his back and he ran closer to me for some reason. Well, yeah, because he heard something behind him, so he like was like, oh, what's that? You know. Which is not a bad strategy. I mean, maybe just
fling an arrow over his back,
one right over his back, and get him to walk closer.
I'd rather call him in than go on that,
me too.
That approach.
Me too. But you know how it is. You get desperate out there. You get desperate. You're like, come on. It's like I just need something to happen for me.